Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and this week will be a return to one of my very many lists that I keep. I have not done one of these since, I think, November it would have been, or was it December when I last did one of these? I'll just check the last time I did one of these, because it's been a while. November 29th. So, yes, it has been a few months since I've done one of these. And this week is an episode I actually teased last week and sort of alluded to that I would do, and it will be me talking about my top 10 animated films of all time. So that's what this week's episode will be. It'll just be me going through my top 10 as well as a few honorable mentions. So my plan is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of mention the ones that are in my top 100, and then I'll go through like my top 10 sort of fully, and I'll go a little more in depth with those. The other ones in my top 100 I won't go into with as much depth because I've talked about some of them before already. So some of these films I've talked about before and done episodes on. So just go check out those episodes. This will be a little bit of a longer episode, a little bit shorter actually, rather. But that's what I'll be doing for this week's episode. So I'm just going to go through, the animated films that are in my top 100. So number 97 of my top 100 is Ratatouille, which I covered in my my full Pixar ranking, which I did last year sometime, so go check out that. But if you haven't listened to that, basically I think it's an absolutely fantastic film. It's a very underrated Pixar film. I would go as far to say that it's one of the more underrated Pixar films. Like, a lot of people really like it, and I love it, based on its placement on this list. But I definitely think some people underrate it to a point of, like, when I tell, like, with some people, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's like a 9 out of 10. They're confused because they're like, really? This is a 9 out of 10. This is one of Pixar's best films? Like, it's really strange. And it's like, yeah, no, it is. It is one of the best Pixar films. Also, at 94 on my top 100 is Inside Out. Again, I covered this in my Pixar ranking. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of Pixar's best works. It's number 5 on my list of Pixar films. It's absolutely phenomenal. In it, on my recent rewatch, which I did last year, so it's not a recent rewatch, but on my last rewatch, I like honestly got a bit teary-eyed at the end. If you've seen and it's Inside Out is really, really great. One of Pixar's very, very best films. Then number 90 on my top 100 is The Incredibles, which just missed a place in the set. Number 11. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't think I need to say much about it. It is The Incredibles. It is a really great film. It's really, really great. It's a shame the sequel wasn't wasn't as good as it could have been. And it's a shame. It's a shame the sequel wasn't as good as it could have been. Like, it's not a bad movie by any stretch, and I would argue it's rather decent. But it just could have been so much more, and that's the problem. Like, that's sort of the problem with Incredibles 2, is like, it's a movie that, so many people had been waiting for ages, and it's a real shame that Incredibles 2 wasn't as good as it could have been, but the original is still a fantastic, fantastic film, one of the best superhero films ever made, and if you haven't seen Incredibles, just go watch it right now. It's amazing. So now we're on to my top 10. Let me just get this up because I'm reading this off something, so I'm just making sure I've got the full list here of the top 10. Yeah. Yes. So, at number 10 on my list is Wallace and Gromit and the Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Now, this is a really, really good film, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It really worked phenomenally well. Yeah, it's a so for Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, it's a continuation of the Wallace and Gromit short films that have been made, which are all I've heard are really good. I haven't actually seen any, but I have it on good authority that they are very good shorts. And yeah, I think that it is I think Wallace and Gromit: The Curse is one of the most entertaining animated films that I personally have seen. I think it has so many great parts about it, and there's so much to it that works. And it's now, to be fair, some of these films I've not watched in a long time, so my sort of memory on some of these films might be a bit fuzzy, and I might not remember things correctly. But yeah, no, it's the film. Also, Go with the Curse of the Were-Rabbit has a lot of really good stuff with it that works, and it has like some really good elements in it. There's some really great comedy, a really great villain voiced by Ray Fiennes. Yeah, it's really, yeah, it's a yeah, it's sort of hard to say with some of these films because I've not watched them in quite a long time. I've watched this film once, and I watched it last year, but it's got some real. The animation is also spectacular. I'm a big fan of stop motion animation. I think that is incredibly impressive that people have the effort and the time to be like, yeah, to do stop motion animation. I think that is like so much dedication and effort and work towards a film that like, like I kind of wish I had, like, because I sort of, by the sort of nature of this podcast, it's pretty clear that I have a big love of films and that I would love to be making films. But, I don't. But stuff like stop motion animation is very much like, how can I, like, that's a lot of effort to put in. And, I think, like, it's very difficult to do stop motion animation, and especially to do stop motion animation well. And, it's just got some really, really great stuff. It's a really great horror parody, which is very hard to do because a whole lot of horror parodies are really crap. Like, there's so few actually good horror parodies. Like, they usually just sort of fall flat on their face, and they're just like, they're not actually that funny, like, at all. And yeah, no, it's sort of a real it's a really good time, and it's, yeah, like I say, it's one of my favorite films of all time, in my personal top 100 films of all time. And in fact, on my list, on my top 100, it is currently number 85, so it's a pretty good position, and it will probably stay on the list for like a decent portion of time. Yeah, so number 9 on this list might be perhaps my most controversial one, or definitely one of the more surprising ones, I'll say. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1996 Disney film. It is number 73 on my top 100. Yeah, I don't think it's ever come up before. My absolute love for The Hunchback of Notre Dame as a film, the Disney film. I think it is legitimately one of the best animated films ever made, and I think it's one of Disney's most underrated. I think, like, there's just so much to it that works, and there's so much great stuff in it that really, yeah, it is really one of like the it's one of the most underrated beyond Disney films. I think it's one of the most underrated films that's ever been made. I legitimately think there's some really great elements in it. It has some of the best Disney songs. Has, in my opinion, the best Disney song, and easily the best villain song of any film ever. In Hellfire, it has one of the best, if not the best, Disney villains, and I legitimately think Frollo is one of the best characters the Walt Disney Animation Studios have ever made. He's a truly phenomenal villain. He truly is outstanding and has so much great depth to his character that is very rare for Disney. Like Disney, not all the it's very rare to see like a Disney film that has the sort of amount of depth that this villain does. And he just has so many layers to him, and he's such arguably the most heinous and villainous and hateable villains because of all the terrible shit he does to people. Assaulting Esmeralda and being a big old racist to them, the gypsies and all that stuff. Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. I think the rest of the characters are also very well realized. I think there's some really good stuff with them. I don't think any of the characters are amazing or anything, but for this kind of film and for what their characters need to be, they work very well, except for the fucking gargoyles, which keep this back from being a true 10 out of 10, one of my all-time favorite films, because the gargoyles ruin this film, and they suck. They really suck. They really are just terrible, badly written characters, and it just yeah. I really don't like them. They take a lot out of the films, and it's just not very. Yeah, they're just not really good characters. But besides that, the rest of the film is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, one of the best Disney films. And I'm currently, as I mentioned, in the process of doing a Disney rewatch, so this could become very outdated very, very quickly. But, time will tell. Next, so the rest of these films on this list are 10 out of 10. So, yes, I love every single one of these films. So, number 49 on my top 100 and number 8 on this specific list is Toy Story 3. I covered this in my full Pixar ranking. I think, it's the best Toy Story film in my opinion. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. One of the best films ever made, best animated films ever made, has perhaps the best Pixar villain they've ever done, or certainly one of the best Pixar villains. Syndrome's pretty good too, but I think Toy Story 3 is truly, truly phenomenal. Has some of the best emotional beats of any Pixar film, and of just films in general. I think Toy Story 3 really works and is super, super emotional. The scene with all the characters in the compactor, and they all think they're gonna be burnt and they're all gonna be melted alive, is fucking horrifying, but also amazing. It's truly a horrific scene, sort of a horrific concept to present to the audience and to children especially. And then they luckily are brought out and survived. And I did read a thing that the filmmakers considered that being the ending of the film. It fades to black as the characters are they're gonna die and they're going into the pit of fire, and then it just fades to black and the movie just ends. And I'm like, no, you couldn't do that, especially not for a kids film. That's way, way too dark of a kids film. And the film also has a really, really touching, really tear-jerking ending when Andy, he's leaving, but he drops the toys off with Bonnie, and They say goodbye to him, for one last time. And it's a perfect wrap-up that isn't ruined by the existence of Toy Story 4, okay? Toy Story 4 is so good. Toy Story 4 is so good and better than it has any right to be. But, yeah, Toy Story 3, absolutely phenomenal. Top 3 Pixar, one of Pixar's best films, one of the best animated films ever made. It's phenomenal. Then number 42 on my top 100 and number 7 on this list, WALL-E. Again, covered this in my full Pixar ranking. I think it is absolutely phenomenal. One of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. I think WALL-E as a character is super duper interesting. I think the concepts that they sort of grapple with and tackle in this film are really well realized. It's got some of the most beautiful animation Pixar has ever made. The scene with WALL-E when he's holding onto the spaceship and he holds his hand up through the blue shit that they're flying through, and that is an absolutely outstanding shot, and it's absolutely beautiful. And the scene of Eve and WALL-E dancing in space is also beautiful, absolutely well realized, and it's a phenomenal movie. And the villain is a bit he's a bit on the air side, but besides that, it's a really, really great film with a really beautiful ending. When spoilers again, WALL-E WALL-E forgets who he is. He gets reassembled by Eve, but he doesn't remember anything, and then Eve kisses him, is the best way to put it. And then he's like, whoa, and he remembers all the things. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, and if you're listening to this and you're like, what? It's not that good. Go check it out right now. Go watch through it. Just go watch it again, right now. It's as good as I'm saying it is. Then, number 41 on my top 100, and number 6 on this list, The Lion King, which I did an entire episode on last week, so go check it out. It's a masterpiece, one of the best animated films, period. One of the best soundtracks, one of the best scores, one of the best villains. Everything in that film is phenomenal. It works so well. Go check it out, and go watch it. It's amazing. Then, number 4. Again, I've talked about this film before because it is another Pixar film, and that is Coco. I stand by it being an amazing film, one of the best, Pixar's best film in my, honest to God opinion. I don't, that's not me being hyperbolic, that's nothing, I genuinely believe it is Pixar's best work. It has some of the best songs, some of the best emotion. It's the only Pixar film to truly ever make me cry. And I've never cried. Well, sorry, I rarely cry in films, and Coco made me bawl. I feel like that's the best compliment I can give this film, and the best way I can appeal and try and sell it to you guys listening, that it is a film you need to check out. It is phenomenal. And I really need to do a full episode on it at some point, so please just go check it out. I don't want to say anything, genuinely. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I'm not going to say anything more. Then number 4 on my list, and Coco, by the way, is 39 on my top 100. Number 33 on my top 100, and number 4 on this list, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I did an entire episode on this, so go check that out. But suffice it to say, it's a really, really great film. In my opinion, the best Spider-Man film that has been made. So yeah, just go watch it. Then, 31 on my top 100, and number 3 on this list, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. Now, I did cover this in what I watched this month, at some point. It's fantastic. It's very much a film where, if you don't like South Park, you probably won't like this movie, but luckily for me, I adore South Park. I think South Park is one of the best shows just being made in general, not even animated shows, just TV shows in general. It's absolutely phenomenal. It is consistently hilarious. One of the funniest films ever made, in my opinion. It has some of the best one of the best musicals ever made. Some of the best pieces of music that have ever been composed for a film. Like, it's truly phenomenal, and I recommend, if you haven't seen it, I recommend you watch a few episodes of the TV show. Prefer like you watch a few episodes of the TV show, and if you sort of like that, check out the movie because it's just the same. It's just the TV show, but it's an hour and a half. And yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. Has a really great, has some of the great has some really great songs like "Blame Canada" and "What Would Brian Boitano Do," "Quiet Mountain Town," "Uncle Fucker," um, "La Resistance," "Carl's Mom's a Bitch." Like, there's so many like great songs in it, and yeah, the ending is something that South Park exceeds at times, and then like surprisingly can do very well, and that is emotional like endings. Like, the ending of the film is super emotional. It's a great moment that sort of wraps up the story, and yeah, it's phenomenal. I highly recommend you go check it out if you haven't seen it. If you're a fan of South Park, of course. If you're not a fan of South Park, you probably won't like it. But I do recommend you check it out. And number two on my list. These final three films are like in a row. So it's 29 for number one, 30 for number two, 31 for number three. Number 30, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Again, I've talked about this film before in one of my what I watched this month. It is phenomenal. I love The Nightmare Before Christmas to bits. I grew up with it as a film. I think it's fantastic. It's a outstandingly well-made animated film. It has, in my opinion, one of the best soundtracks for like a film ever. I think there's so much greatness in that film that just works so well on like the level that it's it's meant to work on. It has some really great stuff, really great emotional moments in it too. It has a really nice ending. Some absolutely great bits of like comedy, but like comedy for like children. It's so much fun, and it's definitely well worth checking out as a film. It's just phenomenal. It's The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's utterly brilliant. So many great moments, so many great characters, so many iconic imagery from that film. It's absolutely phenomenal. One of the best musicals ever made, in my opinion, and it's one of my all-time favorite films. Number one on this list. I've covered this film before. It's Grave of the Fireflies. It's the only anime film on this list, as you can tell. It's the only anime film I've seen, but it is so emotionally devastating. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, and then listen to my episode I did on it, and then check out Barefoot Gen, which I have not checked out, but I am aware is also, it's like sort of a similar thing. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but I do recommend you watch it. It's one of the most emotionally devastating films I've seen. And there's so much I could say about it, but I don't want to, in case you haven't seen it. And this is a film where I don't think I should say anything. I think you should go watch it for yourselves, and make your own opinions based on that. But I will say this: it is one of the best films ever made. One of the best animated films. I'm sorry. I know I've got a bit muted now, but I feel like I need to be for this film. It is hard to watch at points, but it is still incredibly powerful, and it's well worth a watch. At least one time in your life. I think everybody should see Grave of the Fireflies at one point in their life. So, I'll just give you my top 10 again, and then I'll wrap this up. So, number 10, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And then The Hunchback of Notre Dame from 1996, Toy Story 3, Wall-E, The Lion King, 1994. I should clarify, 1994. Coco, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Grave of the Fireflies. So, thank you all for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about animated films for half an hour. Next week will be my Valentine's Day special, which I've been waiting for a long time. It's gonna be. I didn't do one last year, but I decided to do this one this year, so I hope you all listening like it, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Listen to previous episodes, and look forward to all the future stuff. Check out the website, check out all the social media stuff. And yeah, and I thank you all for listening to this one, and I'll see all of you guys in the next one. Goodbye.